Welcome to Grown Up. I'm Avery Moorcloss. Today on Grown Up, the woman who taught me how to be a patient parent, and that it's sometimes really hard to encapsulate the entirety of what someone does for a living in the title of a podcast episode. Sorry, Sheryl. So, pop into a tree pose and get ready for some joyful, playful mindfulness. Here's the secret. It's not just for kids.
I remember growing up, all I wanted was to be a grown up. Now I'm grown up.
When I was pregnant with my daughter, I was sore. And by sore, I mean there were parts of my body that hurt that I didn't even know existed before there was human life inside me. And I went looking for relief. Little did I know that relief would actually come as a pro-parenting lesson disguised as prenatal yoga. After complaining that I couldn't find anywhere to take prenatal yoga, a client of mine suggested I contact my guest today, Sheryl Puckering, and her business, DevaTree. She told me it would, quote, change my life. Sure. So I bought in. Life-changing yoga for pregnant women? Now we're talking. And I'm not going to lie, when you're 6 months pregnant and a woman invites you into her basement for tea and a lie down, it very quickly becomes your favorite place on the planet. But when my kid was actually born, that's when Sheryl, who we now call Miss Sheryl, really amped it up. As a new mom struggling with this brave new world of parenting and development and milestones and when are they supposed to grab this and should their eyes be doing that, the only time I really felt like maybe I knew what I was doing was once a week when I'd bring my daughter Audie to Sheryl's house. So how does a baby who can't even sit up do yoga? My husband would ask quizzically. My answer would always be the same. I do the yoga, she does the development. On Monday mornings, the moms, and sometimes the dad, would stretch, yes, but we'd also sing to our babies, move their little limbs, show them sign language, connect with them, connect with other moms, breathe. And it's been really beautiful to watch all those kids grow up in Miss Sheryl's basement studio. Honestly, I want to tell you that calling Miss Sheryl a, quote, kids yoga teacher really doesn't cut it. She's a child development specialist, a kids wellness coach, a trainer of tiny chefs and tween gardeners, a teacher, a cheerleader, a parenting coach, and an accidental therapist. She's whatever a kid or their parent needs when they need it. So, here she is.
My name is Sheryl Puckering, and I am a teacher by profession and currently an entrepreneur and a business owner in a children's wellness business, teaching children's yoga and mindfulness and lots of different aspects of wellness for kids.
When you were a kid, what would you have said you wanted to be when you grew up?
I would have said I wanted to be a pediatrician. I knew from a very young age I wanted to work with kids, and so that would always be part of what I would do. And with a passion for helping people, I thought, that's it, perfect, pediatrician, until I got to high school and couldn't really do math or chemistry or biology. So it's called DevaTree. Bhava is a Sanskrit word which means love. So it's B-H-A-V-A tree. So I have a studio in my home. In that studio, I offer prenatal yoga classes serving moms to be or new moms right up to kids that are in their adolescent years. All of my programs are a little more than just yoga. For sure, we incorporate mindfulness, but I also love the wellness piece for children, which might include cooking, preparing snacks, talking about where our food comes from, appreciation of nature, being outside, and all those aspects of just providing children from a very young age with the tools they need to help to navigate this crazy, chaotic, stressful, busy world that they're growing up in. I just want to share with children the importance of just living their lives to the fullest and the most joyful, natural state that I think our children should grow up.
And now, a 30-second history of the job. Take a breath, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and pretend that I didn't just lie to you. Yoga is a discipline believed to have originated in India as a spiritual and physical practice that utilized breathing, exercise, and meditation. The actual word yoga is Sanskrit for union. First known references of the practice date back to about 900 to 500 BC. Over thousands of years, and yes, I'm making an astronomical skip here, yoga has transformed from a practice used largely by ascetic practitioners who separated themselves from pleasure, society, and daily life, to the yoga we know today to help improve the health and well-being for people of all ages. That's thanks largely to yoga teachers from India and its surrounding areas who moved from the East to teach yoga in the US and Europe in the mid-1900s. By the 1970s, when yoga started to be considered more mainstream, babies and kids were brought into the mix, both with yoga teachers leading their own kids to the practice and studios opening up their classes to young people using methods that are quite different from those taught to adults. Much of modern-day kids yoga includes songs, stories, and games, along with poses, meditation, and breathing exercises. So, for notes on the benefit of yoga for infants and children, plus wellness, healthy eating, mindfulness, and more, please enjoy this conversation with former kindergarten teacher and current kid whisperer, Sheryl Puckering. Sheryl, I really appreciate you doing this because I think from the minute I met you, I was like, I must interview this person. You just have such a beautiful brain and such a wonderful message for kids. And I think it's so totally worth sharing. So thank you for agreeing to.
Oh, thank you, Avery, for having me.
You're welcome. I often make the mistake of if I refer to you, I say a kid's yoga teacher.
Yeah.
I know that it's not enough. Like I wish there was not that I want to put a title on you, but I wish there was a way I could encapsulate it.
I was trying to think, what would the title be? Wellness coach? Not really. I just want to share with children the importance of just living their lives to the fullest and the most joyful, natural state that I think our children should grow up. You know, and that's not what I'm seeing in schools. So having spent a number of years as a teacher and then taking a bit of a break to raise my own children and then being back in classrooms, either consulting or working with various programs in the city, I wasn't seeing this joyfulness and this, you know, just sheer love of just being a child. And so that then started formulating in my brain, you know, how could I help bring these tools to children in schools? And so my programs are here in my studio, but I'm also contracted out by schools to spend days and time in school during the day. And I also do family yoga and wellness series in schools in the evening.
See, if I could put something on a business card for you, I think I'd put child development cheerleader.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I like that a lot. I'm going to have to take a note of that.
Because I feel like that's what happens with just child development cheerleading.
Yeah, it is, right? And it's a safe place, I hope, for community to be built for moms and for children. You know, it's such an important piece at every developmental stage for our children. So when my, you know, tween and teen girls come here, we do yoga and we make smoothies, but we do lots of talking. We just, you know, it's just a safe place where they can build each other up and I can be there just to hold space for them. And so, yeah, It's a job that's really morphed, and it just continues to morph, which I think is what's important for all of us when we're trying to find what our careers are going to be.
So generally when kids are coming to you, they're coming for yoga and kids camps. Mm-hmm. And so I think I want to start right from the beginning by saying, tell me like the heart behind it. Like what's your goal with these kids when they come to you? What are you hoping they're leaving with?
What I hope... And probably the main reason I do this job and why I love it so much is that I just want kids to know they're important. So, I mean, even back when I was a teacher, I had a superintendent doing a review ask me, what's the most important part of your job? And so teaching even from kindergarten right up to grade 8, it's important that we're helping our students to develop, you know, the academic success and the skills that they need to be successful. But for me, it was more that when that child walks out of that door at the end of the day, I want to make sure they've been heard. I want to make sure they know they're important to me and to the people around them that love them, and that they're honored. So I want all children that come through this door to feel while they're here and then to take it with them that their heart is full because they're important.
Where did that come from? I mean, is that just from teaching? Is that from raising your own kids? Is that from an experience you had as a kid? Like, where does the passion for that come from, for helping kids develop and have a safe space?
I don't know. Right from a very young age, knew I wanted to work with children. So that was just always, I mean, in high school volunteering and just always knew I wanted to be with kids. That's a joy that's because that's what feeds me. That feeds my soul is spending time. So yes, of course, probably my upbringing. I'm one of those very fortunate people that was raised by two amazing parents that are still alive and well and close. My children were raised with two sets of parents, I always say, because their grandparents were close by around the corner. So I think it's just part of everything about me is this love of being with and helping to serve kids.
Well, it's so beautiful to say, like, I mean, full for listeners. I've been coming here since my child was in my stomach or my belly, because I was looking for prenatal yoga and I couldn't find really many options. And then I had a client mention to me, like, oh no, you have to go to DevaTree. It'll change your life. And I was like, okay, prenatal yoga is not going to change my life. And it changed my life. It did, because Audie's been coming to your house since she was 6 weeks old.
Amazing. And she's part of my heart, like so many of the children that come here. But I mean, Audie's just Audie. She's so wonderfully special. And yeah, the children do, I think, even become part of our family in a little way, because my children have grown up having children here. So before DevaTree was DevaTree, I still had summer camps. So I had summer camps here for 20 years because I just wanted something kind of academic for my girls in the summer. So it just kind of started, let's just invite 3 or 4 of your friends each, and we'll come and we'll make scrapbooks and we'll have fun and we'll, just do that kind of stuff together, where they didn't really know it was academic. And then it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And then when I was not as busy with my other business, parents said, can you keep growing? And so we did. And so now at this stage, at this age and this stage of my life, I'm truly, truly doing my heart work for sure.
That's so good. I'm so proud of you.
I'm so lucky. Thank you.
You are lucky.
I'm very lucky.
Surrounded by beautiful kids all the time.
Pretty incredible.
I bet. Okay, so tell me about your childhood. You said that you always knew you wanted to work with kids. So what age are we talking where you're like, yeah, that's going to be my work? Yeah, I think, well, I mean, as soon as you are at that age where people will say, what do you want to be when you grow up? So it was a pediatrician, always. And then all through high school, did volunteer work. I worked in a home for children with special needs, just on a volunteer basis. Yeah, then off I went to university, knowing that medicine was not going to be in my future. And I loved to learn, so I really didn't want university to just be a really stressful, I can do this, I can get through this, calculus and algebra and all of that. I wanted it to be where I was really learning what I was passionate about. So found a program at University of Guelph, and my major was the exceptional child in the family, and loved that and was going to be a child psychologist at that point, and then soon realized that child psychologists are incredibly important, but they see a child for an hour to do an assessment and write up a program for other people to deliver, and I wanted to be the one that was with kids. So then that changed education and went to teachers college, and then I had my own kids, and those were the most important kids for me to be with for that period of time. So were you always a kindergarten teacher, or did you? No, I taught special education. I taught K to 4, but I spent the majority of my teaching career in kindergarten with quite a number of years in grade 1. Tell me how sort of the roots of DevaTree come to you. Like, how did you build and decide that this was the thing you wanted to do next? So I guess because I was really feeling that not an ending of my mothering of young children, but yes, I mean, my girls were growing and they were off to university and living their lives. And I think I always knew that I wanted to come back to my roots in education or to being with kids. That's really what feeds my passion. It just made sense to me to, take all that energy that when I was, wanting to raise my children, all my childhood energy went into raising our girls. And then now I felt I had more time and the space in my heart to welcome other children here. And because we had a business in our home,
my family was used to that. My husband's incredibly supportive and loves that there's people in and out of our house all the time, and kids cooking in our kitchen and kids working in the garden and playing outside. It's kind of a really interesting business model that wouldn't work for everyone, but it definitely works for us. So DevaTree just built out of that. I had that time and that space, and still, quite frankly, a need for a business and for income, and an incredibly supportive husband that would allow me to take some risks and to do this. So off I went to become certified in children's yoga, certified in children's mindfulness, work with the courses that I took in university on nutrition and how to feed families, and then just took all of everything that I love, which is children and fitness and health and wellness and mindfulness and yoga, and put it all together.
Now, I understand it because I come here, and I've been coming here for, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
What kind of questions do you get from people? Like if someone said, oh, what do you do? And, you kind of told them, what are the questions that you get from most people about what you do?
Well, people that don't understand children's yoga will say, wow, that sounds really interesting, and I'd love to send my kids there when they calm down. When they're a little bit more calm, that sounds like that would be great. And or they'll say, really, like you cook with children, and they'll say, like, I don't understand how you could get young children to sit still like for a yoga class. So part of what I have to do is to explain that we don't sit still in a children's yoga class.
Yeah, we don't.
And that, when we provide our children with expectations, guess what? They rise to those expectations. So when we teach a child how to use a knife, or, to try new foods and involve them in growing the food and preparing the food, they try it because that's what we do here. And they make discoveries and they learn. And so I really just share with people that what I want is just for children to feel empowered to make good decisions for their health from a very young age, so that we just don't have this common conception that we grow up, we grow old, we go to the doctor, if we're sick, we get medicine, and we die. So that we have a lot more control over all of those stages in our life, and we need to empower kids from very young age so that they know that they have those choices.
Is that something that you always knew, like for yourself, about healthy living and mindfulness, or was that a journey of your own to get there?
Probably a journey of my own, and being with a partner who's incredibly athletic and wanting to raise our children to be athletic, and following my husband's role model of getting the most out of life. And in order to do that, we have to be healthy.
That's really nice. I ask because I think often it's something that a lot of people don't start to learn about until they do have something wrong.
Right.
Or they have a scare, or someone in their family has a scare, and then they think, oh man, maybe I need to start thinking about healthy living.
Right.
So I just wonder if that was kind of a journey for you.
Yeah, and I think as you get older too, you start to appreciate more, that it's a gift every day to wake up in a healthy body that can move and do all the things that we ask of it to do. So we better treat this vessel that we've been given as a gift with, the utmost of importance and dedication to its longevity.
We've talked a little bit about how what you do changes kids' lives, and I'll talk about it later. But how has making this decision to welcome, all of these children into your space changed your life?
Well, I don't want to sound cliche, but to wake up in the morning and know that I have, upwards of 20 mamas and their babies coming to spend the morning with me on every Monday morning, that changes even your weekend, and then to work for the rest of the day and preparing and getting ready for 3 to 6 year olds to come in their little jammies ready for a snack and a story and a little bit of yoga, right up to having my teen girls come for their smoothie and their empowering, radiant girls night. So wanting to go to work every day, that's pretty marvelous to feel that way. And, when people say the saying, find something that you love and then learn how to get paid to do that, it always feels a little bit odd to me, that saying, because we can't always do that. I didn't always have that in my life, but we have to look at what's happening in our life and hopefully have the support system around you and the drive want to find that as much as you can. But yeah, there's parts of every job that are, that are not your favorite. Doing taxes is it's not my favorite. Bookkeeping is not my favorite. But we have to do all that because this is my career, this is my job, and that's important. But I have been really, really fortunate to change what I do in terms of making a living to make it fit for our family. So when our children were young, we wanted for me to be home with them, so as much as possible. And so we designed our life around that, and we made sacrifices around that, but then we had so many benefits. And now that our house is empty of little ones for a while, we chose to fill it with all of that brings us love and joy, and then it just makes the whole feeling of our house different, I think.
I want to stress in this question that what teachers do is like unfathomable to me, that people can spend all day confined in a classroom with kids and teach them, and like they're so welcome in our lives. But what I think my question for you though is, do you find that there are things, parts of what you do now that are things you wished you could have done offered as a teacher? Or like, do you have more of a freedom to blow past curriculum perhaps in the work you're doing with kids now, as opposed to when you were a teacher with a board and a union and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. The beautiful thing is I get to develop my own curriculum. So what I feel is important, when I was teaching with a school board, of course I was told that 90 minutes of my day was needing to be focused on language development, and 60 minutes was based on math. And with 20 to 25 or even up to 30 children in a kindergarten classroom, not every one of those children needed 90 minutes of language and 60 minutes of math. And so right now, with a small group of children that I'm working with, I get to know them, and I get to decide. So this little body and heart and soul needs my time focused on stillness as much as possible, or needs to develop tools for self-regulation so that they can be successful in the classroom, and that they can be calm and focused. Even as adults, when we're calm and focused and balanced and centered, we do things better. And so how do we expect these little people to be rushed every morning? And this is just the way that life is. So, mom and dad are heading off to work, and they're being rushed, and they need to grab their food, and all of these, they're listening to the news in the car on the way, and there's something scary on the news. They get to school, maybe they've forgotten something important at home, and then their best friend might not be there, and they're outside and they forgot their mittens. All of this is happening inside their little brains before they need to come into a classroom, get undressed, sit down, and listen to a teacher and learn. So if we can provide those children, and I can decide, what my curriculum is going to be, that we're going to focus right now on just developing those tools to calm down my brain, to breathe, to become centered and focused so that I can do what I need to do, but more importantly, I can do it and be happy while I'm doing that, not to be fighting what's happening inside my brain. And so I'm so blessed to develop my own curriculum. And I'm very lucky that a lot of the school boards and schools and preschool centers are honoring that curriculum that I'm developing, and noticing that can be also helpful for their students. And then when their teachers are participating with that program as well, a calm, focused, centered, balanced teacher that has had a chance with their students to breathe and to stretch and to move is going to be better at the job that they need to do as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, especially for those kids who aren't in school yet, and I happen to have a kid who's a January baby, so she's going to be out of the school system for a long time, right? And what I so appreciate about what you do is that right from the very beginning, we're like, you're a new mom, you have no idea what you're doing. You rarely take a minute just to like sit in silence and quiet, because you feel like you have to constantly be entertaining and doing something. And to be able to come somewhere where, someone's really thought about the curriculum of the class, and what at what stage in your child's life you need to start thinking about different kinds of development, but also to come somewhere where it's so non-judgmental is so special. And I've been to mom and baby groups and all sorts of things where sometimes it's easy to feel uncomfortable. Oh, my kid doesn't do that and that kid does that. And you just kind of spend the whole time doing this comparison game, where when we come here, it's very much like,
no judgment. If one kid's not having a good day and they kind of like usurp a lot of the class attention, we all just kind of like send love that way, and that's how it works. Yeah. And I think that's largely due to the atmosphere that you've built around your business, which I think is such a wonderful tribute to the kids who come here.
I'm so happy that you noticed that, because every child, for that mom that says, oh, I really want my 3-year-old to come when they calm down, I'll say, please send them. And because every child on any given day is going to get something out of a class. Maybe they haven't sat still with mom and practiced their breathing that day. Maybe they decided not to do downward dog when we were barking and, doing whatever we were doing. But they're listening, they're watching, and in their own place, they're absorbing what we're doing and what they can take in that day. And maybe the next week will be the week that child will be able to, find their downward dog or find their candle breath or whatever it is that we are working on in that day. So always a child is absorbing what they're ready to absorb in our programs.
Well, I feel like it's taught me a great lesson, because I feel like the muscle that gets flexed a lot is you want your kid to be the kid who sits and the kid who listens and the kid who follows. And I mean, I have a child who does that sometimes, yes, which is nice. But I can see on the days where like I come and she's just like not going to pay attention and she's not going to listen and she's going to touch everything, that it's forced me to have this new muscle where I try to just, something that you say, like, this is what she needs today.
Yeah.
Right? Where I try to understand. It's also taught me a lot about how to communicate with her and how to just understand when she needs something, and she doesn't need me to constantly being like, do this and do that and do this and do that, right? Because we spend an hour every week where I have to kind of sit back and let her be independent and let her do what she wants to do with some direction.
Well, that's what some of my most favorite classes are, when families are here together, because they get to watch and they get to see that as well, right? And your child is not going to always be that child that's going to be the one that's sitting. Every child's different, so we need to honor that child. Still provide expectations, but on those days when Audie wants to open up the basket with the toys in it, she's still watching that there's someone else. Someone else is sitting with their mom in this moment. So she might not be ready, but she's watching. She's thinking, oh, we can positively reinforce that, and then maybe next time she'll make that decision. But I really believe in providing kids with autonomy, the opportunity to develop their autonomy, make their choices, given the expectations that there's going to be times when they're not going to be able to make every decision based on what they want to do.
So your business to me is pretty dreamy. And we talk about accounting and bookkeeping and not wanting to do that stuff. When is it really hard? Like, what's a bad day for you?
So a bad day would be maybe when I think about how needed the business is, to be honest. So if I'm in a school and I've worked with, maybe I've taught 8 lessons in a school in a day from kindergarten right up to grade 8. And when I'm, in a school maybe for only one day, if I'm lucky, maybe 5 days, following a series, and in a 5-day series or a 10-day series in a perfect world, I get to see a student 5 to 10 times. The first day, especially for our teenagers, our tweens, they need to get those sillies out, because this is something that they're really not comfortable with, and they may not feel that they're going to excel at it. So it's really hard for them to take a risk. And yet in the same classroom, I might have some kids that have done some yoga before, and they are so excited to be there. So I'm weighing out, that's a lot of different bodies, a lot of different personalities, lots going on hormonally. So that would be not a good day when I leave, when those students would leave after a 40-minute lesson, and I think, man, I had one chance and I'm not sure that I reached all of them. So I need to be realistic with myself as to what I can do. The same side could be a kindergarten classroom where there are up towards 30 children in a class, and there might be 3 or 4 students who are on special programs. They have assistants and EAs and support people with them, and they are not asked or expected to sit in a circle in a gymnasium. That's not their space. So that can be challenging. So again, it's more so just a feeling of I wish that we had people that do what I do in a school almost full time, so that there was a place a child is having a really challenging moment. And wouldn't that be amazing if they could come to a space where I or someone else was there just to hold space for them, to walk them through some of these tools that I can teach, but in a one-off, how much of that is going to be absorbed. So that would probably be my frustration with, I know that this can be successful for our children, and we have lots of work to do in mainstream that people will begin to understand the value. And in our school systems, lack of funding provides big challenges and frustrations for me, because, we're putting our funding into developing a new math curriculum, but our children are not ready to sit down and learn math if they don't have these tools of self-regulation and know how to quieten their mind so that they're ready to learn those skills.
If someone's listening to this and they don't live in your area where they can come to DevaTree, what would be your message to parents about, like, what are some things that they can do with their kids, or some, some activities or different things they can do with their kids to try and connect the message that you're sending to the kids who are physically here elsewhere? Like, what do you want parents to know?
Well, I want parents to know that they need to take care of themselves. So for parents to understand and to just try to see if they can benefit from a personal yoga practice, first of all, to learn about mindfulness, to reach out. There's so many great resources available online. Lots of cities now are starting to offer children's yoga classes, which is amazing, wonderful. Involving kids as much as you can in every aspect of food preparation. We don't all have the opportunity to have a garden in our backyard, but we could have a tomato plant on a pot on a balcony that your children are responsible for. And I promise you, they'll eat them when they grow them. And then finding that place of being well as a parent is going to allow you to be more present for your children. We could do another whole podcast on screens and families' use of screens. I feel very passionate about parents learning and understanding the effect that screens are having on our young children's brains, and how our own time on screens is impacting our time as a family. This isn't new. I mean, it's slowing down. So when I started 6 years ago, my husband would laugh and just say, he would come home and I might be making bread in the kitchen we're kneading bread or making and he said, this is kind of like what housewives in the 50s did with their children. And it's what moms right now don't have time to do with their kids. So I'm offering an opportunity for families that might feel really bad that they're ordering a pizza instead of making a pizza. It's like, come here, we'll make it. We'll make it, and I'll, we'll give those kids the opportunity to get their hands in dough and kneading their dough and, grating their cheese, whatever it is. Because our families, I know I raised 3 children that were busy. We were a busy family. And if I could go back and do anything differently, I wish we would have slowed down. I wish that I would have had more mindfulness in my life then, that I would have just grabbed hold of every moment sitting with a child in my lap, one of my girls in my lap, reading a story, not feeling like I should, rush this page because I've got lunches to make and I need, we've got all this that we need to do. Finding a way in our lives to slow down and just appreciate those moments because they're fleeting. And every day that we live, we wake up, is a day that we're only going to get to live one time. So let's make the most of it.
It's easy to get busy and forget that.
It is. And I get it. I'm not here saying that, we need to, I know that it takes more time to have a child prepare dinner with you or for a child to stand at the sink and do dishes with you afterwards. But those moments are pretty golden. So we need to appreciate them when we can.
Let's talk about, so looking at your career, teaching, being home with your kids, having started wanting to be a pediatrician, like just surrounding yourself with children. If you had advice for someone who is in the same boat where they are either, going through schooling and they want to do something with children and their development, or they're looking at changing careers, or they want to stay home with their kids as their job, what would be your best advice for someone who's trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up?
not everyone knows. I had 2 daughters that knew from when they were young what they wanted to do, and off they marched and got it done. And then I had one of my beautiful girls didn't know. And that was really hard for her to watch her sisters just have this passion and drive and just go ahead and get it done. So, we had to allow her the space to find out what it was going to be that she was passionate about. Watching that happen and watching young people struggle, or watching someone get to this stage in their life that I am at 58 and say, all right, so what, this is my third act. I kind of think of this as my third act, and I'm really, really grateful that I get to have a third act in terms of a career, and that each act has built on skills to allow me to be here in this space. So what I said to those people that are in my life that I love is that, can you think back to what you feel most passionate about? So at any age, as a child, if you were to answer the question as a child, something that I was really passionate about, and it could be helping people, it could be just even anything that you connected with. It doesn't have to be even something that you're really good at. So was there a sport or an activity, or as a child and as a teenager, what floated your boat? That might not be what you can develop a career on. Maybe it can if you're really, really lucky. But maybe that's just what's going to bring you joy in your life, so that you feel some peace as you decide how you're going to move forward. And then what is the smallest step that you could take? Because it doesn't have to be this big leap for a career change, or for this realization like, oh man, I've arrived and I'm ready to start my career, but guess what? It's not what I wanted. Or here I am, at 20 years old, and everyone around me has made a decision, because we're asking young people, like at the beginning of high school, that can be really stressful, and it can kind of immobilize some of our young people. Think, I don't know what it is I want to do. How am I supposed to make these decisions? So keeping your options open as much as you can. And I live by, there's a quote by Julia Child, find something that you're really passionate about, and then find a way to stay interested, to stay really, really interested in that. For her, it was cooking. So really not allowing what you're really interested in to go by the by, because you're feeling like this is my path and I need to stay on this path. Trying to connect with, at the earliest memory, your earliest thoughts of what would you really like to do that would make you happy.
You know what? It's a great point, too, because one thing that I've found interviewing people and starting with, what did you want to be when you were a kid? Even those that I've talked to who didn't end up being the thing they thought they would be when they were a child or a teen. If you really look at it, it all cycles back. Like, we talk about Chris, the clown that I interviewed on the podcast. And he said when he was young and he wanted to be a police officer or a firefighter was kind of the cool thing to do. And there's nothing further from police officer to clown, right? But what he's doing is still the thing that child who wanted to be a police officer and or a firefighter is doing, is that he's helping people out of bad situations. He's helping to make people smile. He's helping to, turn people in a different direction. And that connects, like that little child's heart who wanted to be a firefighter. He, as a clown, is achieving that same thing. And I think, this is my soapbox I always stand on with the podcast, but I call this grown up, and I ask people what they wanted to be when they were a kid. But actually, my whole point is that I don't think we should be asking kids what they want to be when they're a kid. We should be asking them what contribution they want to make.
How can you make a difference?
Because it's almost a veiled way. When kids come out with stuff, whatever it is that they say they want to be when they grow up. My 13-year-old neighbor, she's in grade 8, and her teacher led them in a discussion of what do you want to be when you grow up. And she said, OBGYN. And I said, she couldn't pronounce obstetrician. I said, why? And she said, well, I just want to help kids. And, her mom is my daycare provider. Her mom worked at, her grandma worked at a daycare before that. I'm not surprised that she's the kid who wants to help kids. And so even if she doesn't become an OBGYN, the contribution behind what she picked when her teacher asked her, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same contribution she ends up at.
And guess what? Some of us want our pleasers. So even as a young child, when someone asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I knew I wanted to work with kids, or even as a high school student. But when I said pediatrician, it's like, oh, that gets a little bit of, recognition after me. Oh, that's what people want to hear. So, I'm going to keep saying that until the point where it's like, well, that's not going to be part of my reality because there's limitations to our situation, to whatever. Yeah. So, and I think that when we ask people, what is it that you want to do with your career, it can be very immobilizing. I guess, I don't know if that's the word. As a child, you can ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, and some of them will answer you. A lot of them will answer you just what they think is cool. But some kids are going to say, I don't know. Or some, school-age kids will say, I don't know yet. And it's okay for them to say that. But what about if we say that to a 17-year-old? What is it that you want to be? They don't feel that it's okay to say,
to not know.
I don't know yet, because of this pressure that we have, that they have to live up to some expectation because they know they want to have the right answer. And it's really hard for those kids to not know and to be able to say, and it should be okay for them to say, I don't know yet, working on that. And then to seek out assistance for that. It should be okay for our young people to say, I don't know yet. And for us to empower them to say,
for sure,
good for you for not just coming up with an answer and just moving, racing forward to that goal that maybe you might not really have landed on.
Right.
And so give yourself time. Take a tiny little step towards whatever you think, but it doesn't have to be this huge leap. Mm-hmm.
Through all of what you've done, if you look back and you think about what you do now, what's the contribution that you're hoping you're making to the world? No matter, whether you're in a grocery store or you're with kids in the basement in a yoga class, what's kind of your heart work?
So I would say it would be that that each child that I touch through a smile or a word or an hour lesson or a series of classes feels worthy and loved and honored and important. And I just so believe that when we can look a child into their eyes and give them the time and the space to really trust you and feel that you mean it when you say you're important, you're amazing, you're worthy because you were born and because you get to walk. I get to walk. I'm honored to walk on this planet with you, alongside of you. That then they're going to have the power and feel good about themselves and have the tools that they need to go out and make that contribution into the world. And yeah, I just hope that each child feels their importance when they're with me, that they know they're honored.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I think they feel that way.
I hope so. Yeah.
I can't imagine them not feeling
well,
that way.
Thank you. I mean, we're not all perfect. We have our frustrating moments, but hopefully when they leave this space, they take with them that full heart to get them through the rest of their day.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a 2-year-old who remembers what Mondays are.
Oh.
So that's, I think, a testament to the work that you're doing.
And as do I. Favorite morning of the week. So,
well, listen, I have so much gratitude for you and the work that you do, and I hope that, maybe this can even inspire people to do work like you do or incorporate it into something that they're doing with children as well, or the teaching that they're doing every day. And I think the world would be such a great place with a bunch of clones of you. So
goodness, thank you. I will tell you that I leave now after our interview. I feel like my cup is full. So my heart is full. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for doing
making my day. All right. Okay.
Grown Up is created, recorded, and edited by me, Avery Moore-Klass. My company is Folktale Studio. Portions of this episode were recorded at one of my happy places, the Switch Podcast Studio at Wilfrid Laurier University in downtown Brantford, Ontario. To keep up to date on what's coming next, follow us on Instagram or Twitter at GrownUpPod or on my personal accounts at Avery Moore-Klass. That's like floss with a K. I like to interview regular people who do interesting work, so drop me a name or a profession that you'd like to see on the podcast. Thanks for listening. Namaste.